toward the One, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the messenger, the spirit of guidance. Well, welcome, dear friends. This is the 10th and final class in this series of becoming a human divine being. So we hope to weave things all together during this last class. And during this class, we're going to go straight through, and then we'll have a period of sharing at the very end of it. So one thing I'd like for you to consider, and something that's a challenge for many people on the spiritual path, a lot of times people don't have much trouble feeling humble, and sometimes to an excessive extent, like feeling not worthy and so on. And here we are. This is those of you who've been with us since the start of these 3 series. This is the 22nd class. We've had birthing your resurrection body, we've had living in your resurrection body, and now becoming a human divine being. And so it's a challenge for many people to think, well, how could that really apply to me? How could I be a human divine being? How could I possibly manifest and live from more and more of the time my resurrection body? Well, if you believe that each of us is a unique expression of the divine being, and that each of us was bestowed with our particular blend of the divine inheritance, and our task, which has been given to us, is to awaken in life to become capable of accessing multiple levels on which we exist, the subtle planes of reality, and then eventually to be able to function from the fullness of all those levels of our being, and then to bring that is kind of our base of understanding, our base of experience, our base of operation in any and every relationship that we have. So we learn to become capable of modulating our consciousness in a particular direction, and that direction can be into circumstances in the world, with people, with situations in life. It could be modulating consciousness to turn within and to be able to experience a subtle level of our being, a transcendent level of our being. We've talked many times about the barzakh, the interface, the meeting place between our human and divine aspects. So we learn how to actualize and use all those capacities of our being. And then Pierre Vilayat would say that sometimes when we feel like we're not worthy and we feel overly critical of ourselves, that it's not considered good manners to criticize the divine artist, since we're each a creation of that divine artist. We're each as I've said, kind of a living prayer of the divine that was launched forth with the birth of our soul, with the divine being having no way of knowing what was going to come from us, what we would become, what the divine could know of itself through us, what could be created by our relationship with the divine. So we're an ongoing, you could say our existence is an ongoing prayer of the divine being. And that's the way that we unfold our sacredness in life.
Beautiful. And so I have some happy news. And I'd like to let you know that sometimes we do have that feeling of, well, you know, I'm supposed to be the human divine being now, and I'm not sure. And we take a look at ourselves, and I don't know if I'm measuring up here, if I did what I'm supposed to be doing. However, most of what we're doing is so invisible to us. Well, everything that we've accomplished has been gathered in the barzakh. It has been, you could think of it as like a matrix, or else those of you that have gone camping before and have had lanterns that have this beautiful wick that's really like a cloth that you is within the lantern itself, and then you turn it on, the whole thing glows all at once. It's this matrix that is us, or is our spiritual body, you could say, has been gathering all of this, these interfaces, these intersections, these connections with everything, and has been learning and exercising and growing, and it'll keep on doing that. But it's again, like I'm going to bring in another idea too, money in the bank. When you're saving in the bank, you keep putting money in there and not taking it out, and you don't see it, but you hope it's still there. And there's a confidence that starts to grow that is not even based on seeing what's in the barzakh, but it comes from that relationship that you have with the divine, that you start to see in things around you, in sounds, in sometimes just the way that the sun touches a bird or a leaf. It's God telling you, yes, we are together. We are the human divine. I am here with you. And what you have gathered is there. It is just hard for you to see right now. So it's like having that confidence that things are all as they should be. And what you have been doing has all been worth it, has all been for everyone, has been for the divine. And the divine feels it more than you do. So I hope that you can begin to allow yourself to feel that confidence. It's also, I have to say, I had a wonderful father that had such confidence in me that somehow I soaked that in, and I still have that from him, and that's a wonderful blessing. Maybe you have that, but I hope you have it from all these wonderful beings that are here right now, and can allow that to really soak in, that what you have been reaching for, what your heart has been aching for, is really happening. It is for you, and it is for the divine. We're all doing it together.
There's times that it's easy to get discouraged and down. And I'm taking part of some training this week from Pirzia about alchemy. And today he told a story about Hazrat Inayat Khan when he was riding on a train with a friend of his. And his friend was really down. And Hazrat Inayat Khan said, "Look out the window, look at the sunset." And he looked out, and I mean, it was just a beautiful sunset. And then Hazrat Inayat Khan said to his friend, "Imagine if this only happened once every 100 years and you saw it right now. How special would that be?" And the man got it then. It was something that he had been taking for granted. It was like that miracle was there every day. The signs, as Murshid said, Hazrat Inayat Khan said that there's one sacred scripture, and the leaves on the tree are pages of that scripture. And what he means by that is really life is the scripture. And the reading that scripture is being able to relate to the signs, the manifestations of the divine in life, in situations, in people, especially and particularly in the ones where our initial response is to withdraw or react or feel constricted or feel cut off. But I hope one thing that maybe you've gotten from all of our times together, as you can remember, even if you're not in that state just then, as when you can remember that you are a being that whose existence spans every level of reality. And Murshid said the human being is the only being in all of creation who has their existence on all the levels of reality. So even if you aren't feeling it, even if you haven't learned how to perceive that, just think what a miracle that is. and think what a miracle it is that it's said in Hinduism, in yoga, that a human birth is a rarity because they believe in reincarnation. Uh, it's such a rare, special privilege to be in this life. And in this life, we have the opportunity, firstly, excuse me a second, to awaken to who we are. That's maybe step one. Step two is to awaken to the reality in which we exist. And part of that awakening is discovering the reality we thought we existed in was a very flattened out, very limited distortion in many ways of the actual world in which we live. And when we awaken to a way of being and a way of relating to our life, the world opens up. And it doesn't mean the external circumstances are necessarily going to magically change, but it does open up. We feel like an expansiveness, a sense of freedom, a scope of function that we didn't realize was even there before. And so, given all that, given what we have inherited, the question arises, well, what do we want to do with that? What do we want to do with the gifts that have been bestowed upon us? Well, hopefully one answer to that is, well, we would like to share the bounty that we've been given with life. We'd like to share the fruits of the way the divine awakens in us and expresses in us with other beings, other expressions of the divine. And we'd like to be able to engage in this condition that we've described as relational unity or harmonic relationship with whoever and whatever we are having an experience with, so that there can be this inner circulation of light between us and whatever we're experiencing. There can be every part affecting every other part by the light of our being and the light of what we're experiencing, that is opening up new possibilities that we didn't know were there before.
Go on from there.
Okay. So I'd like to have us do a practice. We're going to work with 3 different sacred names. And the first one is Warith, W-A-R-I-T-H. Warith means our divine inheritance, sometimes described as the divine treasury. As Ravani Rao was saying, it's kind of like the money in the bank, but in this case that we had inherited. And it's really a unique mix of the way the divine qualities are seeded in our being. I mean, they may be latent, but they're waiting to blossom through us. So that's Yawarith. And the second practice is Kudus, Q-U-D-D-U-S, Kudus. And it's a double D, so you have a stop. It's like Kudus, Kudus. Kudus means the energy of pure spirit. And Pir Vilayat described this as that which enables life to live. It's the catalyst of life energy. So as we say Ya Kudus, we're imagining that we're taking our divine inheritance and we're infusing it with the energy of pure spirit, so it can be brought to its full potentiality of what it can become in us. Ya Kudus. And the third part, I think we worked with this one before, is Qayyum, Q-A-Y-Y-U-M. Qayyum means the resurrection, or it means the quintessence, it means the essence. So if it's a flower, the qayyum of a flower is the perfume. The petals fade away on the flower, but the perfume lasts. It's what's been made eternal or everlasting in our being. So as we do this practice, we feel that there's this ongoing process of catalyzing our divine inheritance, which is always evolving in us through our experiences in life, through our realizations, and bringing forth that which is made everlasting in us. You could say the stuff, the essence of our resurrection body, but it's also our gift, our return that we offer to the divine, and especially to the divine as the divine is expressed in manifestation. So that's a lot of different thoughts go with the different parts, and you can just kind of consider that briefly at the start, but then just let yourself jump into the experience of this without thinking about it too much, and let the sacred vibration of these divine names bring about this effect, this transformation and this expression. So I'll say it a few times and then join with me. We're going to say it slowly so you can really feel it happening. So on Yawareth, you're just feeling, this is what the bounty that I've been given by the divine being. And because there's a new creation at every instant, this bounty is always being transformed, but then that transformation of the bounty of our inheritance is always kind of like the basis of what emerges in the next instant of creation through the action of pure spirit. And Qayyum is what emerges from that, what arises from that. So I'll do it a few times. Let's do it slowly, do it at the same rate that I do. You may want to do this with your eyes closed. Once again, the words are, remember, Ya is evoking the quality Ya, Yawarith, W-A-R-I-T-H, divine inheritance. Ya Kudus, Q-U-D-D-U-S, pure spirit. And then Ya Qayyum, Q-A-Y-Y-U-M, the resurrection, the quintessence. Okay, so here we go. Yawarith, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum, Yawarith, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum. Join with me. Yawarith, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum, 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 Yawarith, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum. Now as we continue to work with this sequence, feel that as you say these words, that you're saying them from all the levels of your being. So imagine that you're a pipe organ. And at first you've just been using it like a piano, just playing the regular frequencies of the keys. And now you've opened up the stops and you're able to bring in the harmonics and the overtones. And so feel like every level of your being is expressing this, the divine inheritance, as it's been actualized in each of those levels of your being, how it's been transformed by the energy of pure spirit, and what has arisen from each level individually but collectively as your resurrection body. Ya Wareth, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum, 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 Ya Wareth, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum. Now, imagine, as we've talked about before, everything in existence is seeking to reveal and announce itself. In that sense, you could say everything is Gabriel. This includes you. So, we're going to try something very different now. Imagine that all the rest of existence, everything that you can conceive of in manifestation and on subtle levels, is experiencing the unique way that the divinity, the divine being, is revealed through you, and they're speaking what they're experiencing. So when they say Yawareth, they're saying, we see your divine inheritance. Ya Kudus, we see how that divine inheritance has been catalyzed by pure spirit. And Ya Qayyum, we see the precious essence that's been distilled from the divinity of your being and shining forth to all of existence. And so it's like all the rest of existence now, as we say it, is imagine that they are saying these practices, and they're saying that in response to what they're experiencing from you. Ya Wareth, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum, 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 Ya Wareth, Ya Kudus, Ya Qayyum. and the fikr silently on the breath, without thinking of the ya, just think warth as you inhale kudus at the first part of the exhalation and qayyum at the second part of the exhalation. So inhale warth, exhale kudus, qayyum at your own rate. And then what's called the fikr asir, the secret or the heart of the practice, without thinking of the words or even trying to put anything on the breath, just experience the essence of this ongoing alchemical process that's always happening. It's the essence of the divine becoming and epiphanizing in life, in every level of life. Amen.
Well, it was a wonderful meditation, and I can share some things. One of them being, at times we have many things that we are teaching, many things we're learning, and sometimes it becomes so much for us to try to remember. And one way to, and we many times talk about multidimensionality, which is, I would feel like it's really very much happening in this great experience that we just had, but very difficult to explain. But I think one way of thinking about it would be this. Let's say that you have experienced all the aspects of our first part of our practice, Yawadith, and are thinking of all of these inheritances and different things you've been given, and really blessings and ways of doing things, and all of this, and there's so much to try to remember. But if we feel like we're holding it in our hearts, that we're loving that our hearts are so filled with love for all of this inheritance, then if we think of the next part of it, Kudus, and we think of how much we love the spirit that is arising from this and blessing this and adding our own touch to this, and we're just feeling the love of all that upon the other love. And then even the third part of our practice, the
Qayyum.
Qayyum, resurrection, And now we're feeling that love rising from that. Somehow we can get one upon the other through the heart without worrying the mind about thinking of so many different things. That might be one way for us. And I feel that that's also the essence of what the Barzakh is anyway, is the heart, and opening the heart to all of it. And that knowing that it is all meeting, and the union is there, and the divine is there, and the human divine experience is there. And upon that, then, the surface of that, all of this beautiful work can happen. So I'd like to take you back, some of you before you even joined this little group of ours, and some of you will remember back to when we had earlier series about the Zoroastrian tradition. In that we pledged we were sons and daughters of Sveta Almighty, the goddess of the earth. It's actually the archangel of the earth. And this was the divine relationship in the way that we related at that time. And living in a world irradiated by Svarna, which means the rising of the light being that is our soul. Like that experience we spoke of last time, of living in the dawn of what? Not the new day, but our own soul rising. Hopefully you're having that kind of feeling as we speak. We realize by holding the thought of wisdom that we were asked to accomplish through Spent Almighty and open the house of Spent Almighty, the thought of wisdom was important to us, that we would hold the thought of wisdom. And that, we were told, that was the same as the imagination, the imaginal faculty as we're speaking about it now. And we can completely transform our relationship with the earth and ourselves through this imaginal faculty. How can that be? It's like we're imagining things in a new way. This goes right along with things that Azarbash was just sharing. Reimagining things, knowing that we can, and that we have that ability to see things in a new light, you might say, or in an incredible rising light. It's different all the time and surprising. It's like we stop tethering that imagination and just allowing it to be that rising dawn, be that rising the light that's always going to surprise us and delight the divine in everything that we do. This is the union of the human and the divine in that kind of experience, and the human anchoring it and bringing it to those who are experiencing this manifest world. That is one thing that we do, even in all these moments of elections and, people turning, writhing about, oh my side, your side. In this union that we can have with the divine, we can bring all of the qualities and all of the blessings into the manifestation. We're being challenged by these events right now that beg us to see everything, but the world itself is begging us to see everything in a new light. But this is not just fooling ourselves or thinking of this idyllic situation. It's realizing we can see things differently in what we call a multidimensional way, or not allowing our material eyes to deceive us into cutting ourselves off from the energy of the universe. Jesus said, those who have eyes, let them see. So we've been given an abundance of tools, the qualities of God, the beautiful example that we just had, the spiritual teachings, the teachers and classes. Best of all, we have the challenges of life that show us the limited way of perceiving and doing, and then says, okay, now what? What do you imagine? You are now, you hold in one hand the divine, and you hold in the other hand what we usually see, what we usually do. And then we'll go, some of us will say, well, what do I do with this? Well, that's from the limited point of view. Let's open to the possibilities. So that imaginal faculty is the most wondrous of our discoveries, through which we establish ourselves as a compassionate, responsible, many-talented being whose capacities we allow to surprise us, the gifts to the world that we are now enabling to mature. Would you like to offer something?
Yeah. So even Arby said that in the process of creating human beings, that God conferred upon the human a mode of being, and the human conferred upon God a mode of knowing. But as wonderful as that is, that's still a dualistic way of looking at things. Both sides of that are true. But through what we've been talking about through this series, this relationship, this marriage of the two sides, where each side keeps its essential nature, neither side is dissolved into the other, but the meeting of these two sides in the Barzakh, and what is birthed forth from this? What is birthed forth through the divine co-creative process? The ancient term is Himma, H-I-M-M-A, is something that is it's the fruit of the result of the creation of manifestation and the divine in conjunction with each other, and what's born forth from that. And that's the purpose of, I think, the true purpose of existence. And when we think about our individual purpose or our dharma, and we've talked about this before, it's to bring forth that which is unique in all of existence, the way that the divine can be expressed through us, can be known, the access to the divine wisdom that's particular to each one of us, to bring that forth in our lives through following the deepest desire of our heart. And that's what naturally arises when we live in that way. That's what naturally arises when we are relating to whoever and whatever we're experiencing in that way. That's what arises when we can see beyond just the physical senses, when we can see in the deeper sense of you could say, the divine seeing that is revelatory. That's not only seeing what is revealed and what we're experiencing. We've talked about Tawil, that harmonic perception, but it's what's catalyzed through us having that way of seeing whatever we're experiencing, that, and this is different from our usual way of thinking about things. That way of seeing actually helps to open up something in what we're seeing, so it can be triggered in fulfilling its own unique expression of divinity. And once again, it's not through effort of will. It's not like we're going around, well, I'm going to zap this with my divine seeing here or there. The purpose of spirituality, as Hazrat Inayat Khan said, is to become a natural human being. So this is a natural faculty of the true human, or the human divine being. This is just the way of being. We don't have to think about how we walk when we walk around. We don't have to think about how do we hear, how do we see. But when we can be in this co-creative relationship, this is just what naturally arises in response to circumstances. And then we can uh, feel the circulation of light with whatever it is that we're experiencing. We can be able to access what is known as revealed wisdom. It's wisdom that doesn't come from books. It's wisdom that arises from within. And we might think that that wisdom is like something sitting in the cosmic computer that the cosmic Google looks up for us. No, I don't think it's like that. I think it's wisdom that in one sense is created and revealed at the same time by the very experience that we're having. And what is it revealed to? It's revealed to our human manifest side. So it becomes something that triggers further understanding in us. But it also is wisdom that's a gift to the divine being, that the divine now has a capacity of understanding itself that wasn't present there before. So here we have this system that we're totally interconnected with, and every part is affecting every other part. Every part is in relationship with every other part. And most wonderfully of all, everything is enhanced by what is revealed by every part in relation with every other part. So that light that shines forth from us, the light that we receive from other beings, the presence that arises from that kind of relational unity is now birthing forth further wisdom. In a way, we could say that wisdom is the fruit of the human divine alchemical process that's always ongoing. This relationship is always undergoing a process of deepening and transformation, and more and more wisdom is opened up in the process. And included in that is more and more evolution and enhancement of even the divine qualities themselves. And we've talked about when we work with a practice in this way, when we feel that we're in deep relationship with the totality and the medium. The quality is the medium of connection and experience. But then every time we say that sacred name, something has changed in us. So the next time we say it, we're not the same person saying it as we were before, but the very quality itself is changed by how it's been transmuted through our own experience of that quality in relationship to everything else. So it's like, there's a wonderful term in Buddhism, mutual or dependent co-arising. Nothing is the cause of anything else, but everything is affecting everything else. Everything is causing everything else to arise. So once again, where I started tonight, when we get in that state of limitation and doubt and putting ourselves down and so on, the antidote to that is remembering who we are. And there's a wonderful story that I'm sure some of you or many of you perhaps have heard about a young lion cub that got separated from his parents. So it was raised with a flock of sheep, and it thought that it was a sheep. And so it was going around kind of making the best baa sound it could. And one time the adult lion came along, and of course this lion who thought he was a sheep was terrified, and the lion said, "Come with me, come to the water. Oh, you're going to eat me. No, just come with me." And the adult lion had the young lion look in the water and see its reflection, and it realized that it was really a lion. A lion thought it was a sheep. But this is a gift that awakened beings give to other beings, that teachers impart to their students, not with words, but by just seeing that, as Pure Light would say, seeing that which transpires behind that which appears. Seeing, Pure Light would also say, when we look at someone, seeing their divine countenance, even if they seem to be just an awful being, everyone is an expression of divinity, even if that expression has gotten distorted beyond measure. I mean, just really awful. But underneath all that, even if that person has no conception that it's there, once we see that in them, something is stimulated in that their own divine inheritance that we can't count on something changing in them, and maybe it won't in this lifetime, but something is triggered that eventually may have an effect where they awaken and realize that they're not who they thought they were. And we're not who we thought we were. I hope that you've gotten that from this series. We are, well, we can say everything is so much more than what we thought it was. I mean, even what we think of as inanimate objects, but particularly living things in nature and other people, everything is an expression of the divine being yearning to be seen, to be known, to reveal itself, to let its light shine forth. But also everything is yearning to receive that light that comes from everything else, including each one of you.
Wonderful. So I'm going to take another pass at this wonderful transformative kind of moment that we have here, and think about Pir Vilayat, that he spoke a lot of toggling. So when we speak about the human divine being, we're really, as you know, not speaking about human and then you just kind of glue it together with divine somehow. You have both of these, human, divine, you know, are you in relationship to the divine? No, we're speaking of something else, that something like what Azurbash was just saying is something more than human, more than divine. And so toggling used to be the idea you think of one thing and then you think of the other thing. So you might think of God and you think of the human, and then you think of God and you think of human. But the goal is to be able to experience both at the same time, or somehow one multiplied times one another. Sometimes we would talk like that. And I'm really talking about alchemy here, one reflecting upon the other, making that part arise to something more than it was, and then somehow in relationship, and now that is something different, coming from both sides now, not just from one side or the other. I had a meditation in which I was seeing what I thought was my spiritual body as many different cells, that each one being a sphere, but in one side it was illuminated. It was illuminated from one side, and I was thinking it could be like from angelic light was illuminating that one side of all of, let's say, one sphere, this metallic kind of sphere that was a cell in my spiritual body. And then there was a light coming from the other side, only the other side now. Let's say that that was a light of existence, maybe like the sun above my head over here, and it was the sun within manifestation. And then go back to the other side. Here's toggling again. You see it from one side, you see it from the other side. You see it from one side, you see it from the other side. But then we somehow sense something beyond that. It's like you're talking about revealed knowledge, that there's somehow something that raises it to a higher realm, to a higher experience. And it's really, this is the jump here, trying to describe what that really is. But you could even say that this whole experience maybe is reflected upon this varna, or the light being that we are, rather than the way of thinking that we have, this mental images. And in that reflection upon this greater surface, you might say, or a surface which is multidimensional, this aspect of ourself now is raised to itself. It's like it can now, rather than having this mental image or a way of thinking, it just is a suggestion that takes us to what it is beyond that, so that we don't have now the angelic plane, maybe the light of the plane of the treasury and these other lights, and these are all separate things. That multidimensionality really means this circulation that is going through all of the planes. See, and these are words, and this is not any way of us understanding things. It's giving us hints that perhaps, you know, in a dream or perhaps at a certain moment, it'll have its fruition. But I like to think of it as the light being that we really are, that is in back of all the images that we make of our being. When it's really reflected upon that place, which is our eternal being, then we see. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah. So, and this is something I said during the last class, during the part that didn't get recorded, so I'd like to have it included. So when we have these experiences in the Barzakh, especially when we have these very high experiences, if we're able to do what we aim to do here and really ground those experiences in our being existing on all these different levels, we have to have a way of, you could say, translating an experience of something that's beyond words into something that is comprehensible. And so how does that happen? Well, it varies from person to person. It might be we hear the music of the spheres, we hear this amazing music, or we see these landscapes of the soul, or we have a feeling of, wonderful feeling of energy. But whatever it is, we have some way of making something tangible out of this experience. And so the great beings over the centuries, many of them have written the what was called the allegory of their souls. It's like the story of the journey of their souls and the beautiful poetic images. One's the conference of the birds, and there's the allegory of the soul of Avicenna and the Prophet Muhammad and Ibn Arabi, talking about these wonderful, incredible, mystical experience of their soul, sometimes expressed through poetry and oftentimes through metaphor or parables or so on. But when we have an experience like that, initially, usually it's a hal, H-A-L, a temporary experience. We come down from it and then we remember it, and then we try to figure out how to get back to that experience, and that never works. You can't repeat it. But gradually, what started out to be a hal, a temporary state, becomes the maqam. It becomes the station of our being. But we have to, this is something Ravana and I were discussing during the week, we have to develop a capacity to hold that experience. Of thinking about an electrical circuit, a capacitor stores electricity. We have to have something that can contain that. We have to have an adamant sense of the experience of who we are that is persistent no matter what level our consciousness is directed on, no matter how subtle it might be. And when we can do that more and more, then we can become, in a similar way, the same function that an icon serves, or a mandala. Someone contemplates an icon or a mandala, and it's really like a key that opens up a deeper level of reality. And we've talked about what happens when subtle energy is connected with ordinary reality, how that opens up now possibilities. The laws of physics are not limited to the way that they were limited before. But our very being becomes like that. We can become like that transformational being. In mysticism, sometimes it's called the philosopher's stone. And the philosopher's stone is something that is another way that's described too, is like it's an elixir of life. It's something that brings about a transformation in others, but it's never used up. It's just the nature of that. But we can become like that. And the great beings who have been throughout time, that's been the natural nature of their being. I mean, things would blossom around them, not just nature, but people unfold, because their very being in relationship with other people brought about that opening of the usual limited space of whoever was around them. And imagine if more and more people became capable of that, not just as individuals, but as we say in the invocation, who form the embodiment of the messenger, that each of us now, I think, has the capability of becoming a part of the messenger of our time, that revelation of divine wisdom that is now not particularized to one single being like it was in the past, but now is like the birthright of humanity that we have the capacity to become part of.
Wow. So I think we're beyond words now, and so we'll do a practice. This is practice of the light of glory. You might think of Svarna, or the rising of the light. Here we got an emblem of it, of glory. Ya Nur. Nur means the uncreated light, or the light that is beyond manifestation, the inner light. And then Ya Majid is glory or splendor. So we can think of it as putting them together, the light of glory, the light which is your soul, we think of. And so we can first say Ya Nur, and then Ya Majid. And putting the meanings together, though, really is the light of glory. So it'd be like this: Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid. Join me when you're ready. Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid. Feel the light rising within you. Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid,
Ya
Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid,
Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid,
Ya
Nur,
Ya
Majid, Ya Nur, Ya Majid.
One more.
Ya Nur, Ya Majid.
And I will say it on the breath. As you inhale, think Nur. As you exhale, think Majid. And keep going, saying these on the breath, and just thinking of everything bathed in the light of glory. And feel the light of glory in your heart and in all beings. Here we go. Now we can just let the words go and feel the essence of the practice, the light of glory. We'll spend a couple more moments. Amen.
Pour upon us thy love and thy light. Give sustenance to our bodies, hearts, and souls. Use us for the purpose that thy wisdom chooseth, and guide us in the path of thine own goodness. Draw us closer to thee every moment of our life, until in us be reflected thy grace, thy glory, thy wisdom, thy joy, and thy peace. Amen.
Amen.